gold, lava, plasma, some type of fluid going over and around the craft.
What is it that you saw and found out and can tell us about?
I only came forward because I sincerely believed they were going to die. Sucks. I think what we are dealing with is very, very, very old. I think old humans have written those down in religious stories. I think that it's quite clear that we have been influenced by something else. I provided 3 rudimentary drawings, one of which was unclassified and the other 2 were immediately thrown into a sap. And the 2 that were thrown into a sap prove we are not alone.
In this episode of Weaponized, you will notice that we chose to censor certain details within Dylan's testimony, most unrelated to UAP. This is to avoid unauthorized disclosures and is subject to an ongoing clearance review. Dylan was given only 6 days to prepare his testimony for Congress. He is currently seeking clarity on being able to publicly discuss certain aspects of his professional experience. What is it that you saw and found out and can tell us about?
Well, we can go into it. I don't know how much is going to come out.
Okay.
Let's hear it, and then we'll figure it out later.
So basically, hypothetically speaking, let's say that I claim I saw Bigfoot running around Nevada test range, and I saw Bigfoot outside the Starbucks, and Bigfoot was wearing a U.S. Air Force uniform. If I said that to Arrow or to the IG, but mainly Arrow, and Arrow comes back and says, and I draw a nice picture of Bigfoot in a pretty Air Force uniform. Let's say Arrow comes back and says, hey, Dylan, you talking about Starbucks is unclassified. You talking about Bigfoot in that military uniform? That's TS, no foreign. You are never to say another word about that. That's what Arrow did to me, and they classified everything I brought forward.
So you're working for BAE and for somebody else.
Yep.
For somebody else in the structure of
multi-agency special access program. Yes, sir.
And it's under the umbrella of a private company.
The private company is how they are getting us to work there, but it is all under the umbrella of that agency.
The information you had about these flying Tic Tacs that people are taking down, do you get that information through your work at BAE and that agency?
There were people who ended up working there with me who were brought into the legacy program whose lives were also destroyed, and they believed, based off of what I was saying about what I experienced in my life, the triangle, what I knew that to be true at that point, they believed I was read into the program, and they believed that because I was having the clearance issues and the VA issues and everything else, the financial, what they did to me, they were experiencing it too. And there were multiple people who I was working with that were a part of what is conveyed as the legacy program.
So you're working at BAE for an agency, and on a coffee break or a smoke break, you confer with your coworkers, and you tell them about something you've seen, and they start sharing information with you.
Yes, but not even all that openly, because people were still so freaked out about it. And this gets into something else, which is when I was there, and this is why, we talked to Dave, and I explained this to Dave.
Rush.
Yep. One of the things that was very odd was, you're working 12 hours and it's middle of the night, 3 a.m. after working a 12-hour shift, 4th day in a row. You're just doing anything to stay awake. I remember you were talking about UFOs, and you talk about everything from football to baseball to movies to music. It's just, you're trying to stay awake. You're trying to get through the night or the day. And we were talking about UFOs, and Bob Lazar had come up, and you're just talking normal talk.
Yeah.
And I remember I had talked about what I knew to be true, and I had gotten a pop-up message on my computer. It said, you're not supposed to be talking about this. To this day, aside from having gone to the IG and what was conveyed to me by my attorney, to this day, technically, I have never gone an official, Dylan, here's what's happening, do not do this, here's why. It has been these subliminal pot shots, but there were multiple people that I was working with that were well aware of the reality of this subject, and considering where I worked, the finances that went into there and how much money funneled through there and how many programs we touched, that there were a number of people that were well aware of the reality of this situation. The UFO subject had been a part of quote unquote legacy programs, had gone to TDYs, had done it. But most of the people that were aware most of them were younger. Most of them had had their careers destroyed, their lives destroyed. Most of them believed that me talking about what I was dealing with my clearance and all the problems I was dealing with the company and the agencies, they thought it was safe to talk to me about their own experiences in the legacy program.
They assumed you knew more than you were saying.
100%.
So it's almost like, it sounds like they put all the bad eggs in one basket. It's like, all these guys knew too much and they're blabbing. We'll put them all over here with you.
Pretty much.
And was there surveillance of the employees? How did the information go to a higher up that would send you a message says, shut the hell up?
I mean, you're on an ops floor and, you have people from every agency you can think of in there, and you're on computer systems that are closed access, and there's government employees and contract employees from multiple different contract companies. And knowing what I know now, in hindsight, knowing the way that these legacy programs work, if you're not embedded in the company, you're coming as a government representative, it's TDYs, and knowing the government has TDY requirements depending on what agency you work for. Some of these people probably found their way over to TDY, and they had heard me talking about things that they thought they were far more important than they really are, and thought that I shouldn't be talking about it.
You're just bullshitting with coworkers.
Pretty much just talking.
And they are with you. Is there somebody in there that's counterintelligence that was sent in there to see who's blabbing?
Towards the later end, I would bet so. At
that point, you're not filing reports or calling New York Times or raising hell.
No, to be honest with you, George, talking to the media was so ingrained into me and other people in the work we did that it was like persona non grata. Like, if you went and talked to anybody outside, like, you're a dead man.
You wouldn't have done it.
No. I mean, even whenever I felt that I had to, I was shaking. Even when I went to Senate, when I went to Congress, I was shaking.
Is this why your clearance was sort of put in limbo? It doesn't exist because you're saying things you shouldn't be talking about.
I think early on it was a mistake, and I talked with Dave Brush about this. I think early on it was a mistake. They were notified 6-7 months into it, and then from then on, they outright just did not care. They terrorized me. I mean, I would go into work. They were notified by multiple companies that they were not housing my clearance correctly. Multiple companies tried to pick me up. Multiple companies said they would give me a pay raise, a better job. I couldn't take any of it. They notified BAE, they filed complaints, and I got the runaround between the company, the two agencies that I work for. But long story short, it is my opinion in hindsight, and other people who are also whistleblowers and other people who have worked in these programs, that is a standard operating procedure by these people to keep this quiet.
Your career has been in classified programs.
Yeah.
Your training has been in classified programs. They now tell you you don't have a clearance. You can't go to work anywhere else. You are frozen here, whether you like it or not.
Yep, 16 hours a day, doing night shift, weekends, holidays for $62,000 a year. Yep.
But to be clear, you had a clearance. It's not like they said you don't have one, you lost it. They're keeping it in a purgatory, which is a technique we've heard over and over of how to keep people somewhere and almost like try to squeeze them out through pressure. So I just want to make that clear. It's not like he ever had anything, a mark on his record where they're like, you no longer have a clearance. He was in good standing. It's a type of purgatory people create. So look, we're kind of glossing over this idea. We're here to talk about the UAP reality. Boom. You see something at Langley Air Force Base that you have testified to Aero, to Congress, to Senate Intelligence, to even people that we're not talking about. You've testified to a lot of people officially, ICIG. You wanted them to know that this craft you saw, which you're thinking, maybe it's something we reverse engineered. We now know through that it's likely not just our tech, that it might prove David Grush's ideas about reverse engineering that we've been told all the way back from Lazar. He saw an operational craft over a military installation that is far beyond, there's no fingerprint for. We don't have that technology to the best of my understanding at this time. So now whose was it? Was it a joint operation? Were there comms with whoever the pilots were? But it was a huge triangle. that had this electrostatic charge. The other thing you told me that like I want to hear more about was the gold glow, because I've heard this over and over and over, like a lava lamp. It was a sort of undulating on the skin of this thing, right? Like a
basically, yeah. The best way I can describe it is overlay. If you're looking at a lava lamp and seeing that flow, place a yellow semi-transparent lava lamp flow on this craft, making 90-degree turns and all over the craft, and it's just this yellow transparent, almost like smoke cloud, pulsating all around the craft.
So clearly a technology like Matthew Brown has kind of thought that either it's non-human intelligence technology, or it's something that we've figured out how to operate, and it's like a breakaway civilization. It's so advanced that this is something that's not acknowledged, even to Congress, the people that should have oversight. So you've got that big one UFO experience, right? The UAP experience. Then you have this accidental exposure, but to such a high degree. I don't want to ask the question because I don't know if you can answer, but did you physically see photos? Did you physically see these documents?
No, but because of how much was given to me and relayed, that the individuals that had relayed it, they were doing so because they were genuinely concerned for their life, because their careers were taken, their houses were broken into. I mean, computers taken, mailboxes gone through that. And again, they knew what I was going through at this time. They had given me enough information, and the agreement was that if they died, that I run with it and just blow the whole thing up.
So he's got his firsthand experience of this tech, but then this is something, George, I hear a lot, which is in the legacy, when you're kind of put into the bad camp, you know, you're under scrutiny now, that there are these people that are threatening you, and you do feel afraid for your life. And we'll get to it, but there are some things that occurred to you as this gets kind of deeper and deeper with what's happening. But just to be clear, so you're in a place where there's some sort of purgatory going on. Everybody has clearance, but they're in this sort of purgatory. You're in this sort of purgatory,
yep.
Right? And then people directly involved in the legacy program are afraid for their lives, so they're telling you so that you can, at least somebody at their level can take that information if something bad happens to it.
I think it was definitely that, but it was also, this is such an isolating, lonely experience, especially for young people to be exposed to the reality of this. If you already don't have the acknowledgement that it's a possibility, like if you're, I don't want to say closed-minded, if you're average Joe Blow going through life and then all of a sudden this pops up on your radar and you're seeing physical proof of it, you probably take a step back and go, well. So you have that aspect, then these same people have that aspect of it, and they also have the aspect of their government destroying them.
So they are going through the same thing you are.
Exactly.
Their clearances are in limbo, home break-ins, threats,
when
or otherwise.
When I come into contact with these people, they had to resign from their government position and take a contracting job for less money. They were basically blacklisted for 6 months. The only reason they ended up getting a job was because somebody on the legacy program had hooked them up after 6 months. And they ended up where I was at, and they heard me talking all this stuff, and they're like, oh, you ended up here too, buddy. So what the hell is going on here?
It's like the island of bad toys or something like that. You know,
yeah.
Put them all in one basket.
After I saw what I saw and I've experienced what I've experienced, I think most of us have taken the delve into all of this material. And you're like, I know this is true. I know this is true. I know this is true. Who else is saying these true things? Who else is relaying information that I know to be true to try and make sense of your own life? They were aware of what I was talking about. I don't know the capacity in which they were briefed in. There's things that I knew that these people were aware of, but even they would not say. One of those being biologics.
You think there's a storehouse of that information that anybody would have put something away in case something bad happened to them? And do you know what happened to these people?
You know, the ones that I know still continue in the government. I think they continue in their classified operations programs.
They're not coming forward.
They would never come forward in a million years unless they were going to die. And it really sucks for me coming forward, because I only came forward because I sincerely believed they were going to die. Sucks.
And you yourself have had really unfortunate coincidences.
Yeah.
We'll put it that way. And that's one of the reasons why we started communicating, was because if anything did happen to him, he wanted to make sure some journalists like you and me knew about it. And so I call that like a perceived threat or a real threat. I don't know. And I think some people too, the way these things happen, it's hard to put your finger on the cause of it. I know that happened with David Gresh, with Matthew Brown. You can have police reports saying this happened. I had to break into my home, but proving who did it, even though it's very coincidental timing. And you have one of those experiences yourself, is right when you're leaving this agency that you're not naming, that I think we're all guessing, but right when you're leaving that employment,
I mean,
something bad happened.
I can fill you in there.
It's a good time for that one.
So for 3.5 years, I worked for BAE without the ability to take another job. And the nature of the work we did, we would get a new boss, whether contractor or govy, every 6 months. I mean, that was the way it was. People were in and out of there because that job is hell. 3.5 years into it, we get a new contractor boss, and he comes in and does the typical Dylan's lying. His clearance is fine. He doesn't have his master's degree. He's full of crap. And I'm like, I'm done with this, my man. So I went to my government employee at the time, who I thought I was friends with. And I told him, I was like, I want to know who your boss is, because I'm going to his office right now, 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm telling him I want my stuff fixed. He tried to tell me, don't do it. It's going to look bad. I was like, I've been here for 3.5 years. I cannot do this anymore. This work is killing me. This is insane. This is the worst place on planet Earth. And I go to his boss, and I walk in there. I say, here's my name, here's my social, look me up in JPass and Scattered Castles, because I guarantee I'm not in there. And verbatim, he says to me, there's no way you wouldn't be allowed in the building. I was like, you want to bet? He looks me up and he says, oh, wow, you haven't had a clearance since 2014. He gets on I give him other names of people who were in similar situations. And he gets on a phone call, and he makes a call, and he says, fix this now. I walk out of the building, and magically my clearance pops up in JPass and Scattered Castles that morning. I get a phone call from BAE System Security, and they're not happy with what I did. I take the first job I can, which was teaching counter UAS, so counter unmanned aerial surveillance vehicles at JIDO, which became DITRA. And long story short, I come into work a couple weeks later, and I say, here's my 2-week notice. I'm out of here. They're like, oh, well, what can we do to keep you? I was like, there's absolutely nothing you can do to keep me. They're like, all right. They're like, you got to out process. Well, before 2 weeks, I'll process in a few days. I go and I'll process early. And as soon as I sign the paperwork, I walk out of the office, and the company that hired me contacts me, and they say, your clearance has been erased again. So I lose my clearance in May. That's May of 2018. The company that hired me went to their prime, which was at that point CACI, C-A-C-I. And for about a month, they are working, at least they're telling me they're working on getting my clearance fixed. And in early mid-June, I am contacted by the company that hired me, and they said, we are unable to get your clearance back in the system. We have to move on to other candidates. Good luck out there. We don't think you're ever going to get your clearance fixed. That night, I was invited out. And I was getting ready to sell my vehicles. I had pulled my 401k at this point because I knew I was done. I had filed for unemployment, which they denied me for. And on the way home, I totaled my car, and there was a police investigation, and the police had told me in confidence that my brake lines were cut. They wanted it to look like a suicide, which goes into what the VA was doing with me and the medical issues and the doctors that had resigned and all that.
So you leave somewhere you were at. Next thing you know, you're pushing your brake to the floor, total the car, but you're able to get home.
Yep.
And you get home, and then of course the police see the car totaled, and they either wonder, were you sober? Is everything okay? And you invite them over. You said, come do a breathalyzer.
Yep.
They said, well, this is going to take a while.
Yep.
We're going to contact you tomorrow. And then the lead investigative officer in that case physically comes to your home.
Yep.
And warns you that somebody tried to kill you. Your brake lines were cut.
He verbatim said, the only reason I'm not charging you with a crime is because your brake lines were cut.
I'm not charging you for a crime because your brake lines were cut.
Is there a police report?
There is a police report of the totaled car, and there's a police report of what I said to the officer, which is I went out with a friend who worked for the agency. I had 2-3 drinks playing pool over the night, had some wings on the way home, car totaled.
Does it say in any police report your brake lines were cut?
I have been searching for it, no. And this is what sucks is this is the most damning, and I know what was said to me, and this is the only thing out of all the craziness that I do have evidence to that you guys have seen, these weird polygraph tests and VA tests and all this, but the police report verbatim saying that my brake lines were cut, I am still trying to get proof of.
Exactly. That's a clear cut thing, right? It's like, we can talk about the administrative terrorism, the bizarre psychological, I'd say, experiments that he had to endure.
You're working for BAE, but not really. You're working, that's the structure of this company. You're working for an agency. It's doing the same stuff.
Yep, it's called
redacted.
I mean, you have covered positions, non-official covered positions, and even then I'm starting to float down a river of classification and classified information, but basically I was...
Your paycheck is from BAE.
Yes.
Are there other people who aren't necessarily BAE government people that you are interacting with at any
100%, and there's other agencies outside of the IC that I'm interacting with. There are other contractors I'm interacting with because it's a way to...
redacted.
Here's my question is your employer and the secret employer know what you know. They know what you did. You've done it well, even though you feel guilty about it. Why wouldn't they take care of you and not want you to spill beans or go off the deep end?
So,
why wouldn't they do that?
All right, now you're asking me my opinion, and this is my opinion. To be clear, I think at the time that all of this was happening and considering with what the VA was doing to me, what was on my official record, it is my opinion that it would have been very easy to discredit me publicly by saying this individual is delusional, look at all his medical records, he's a disgruntled employee, a liar, all of that. And then the problem became, though, especially when I came to Arrow and spilled the beans, and then people found out I kept police reports and voicemails that are on my phone, you guys have heard.
Yeah.
That people found out very quickly that it was going to be very easy to discredit me when I was still under the belief that if I said anything, they would call me a Looney Tune. And then they found out how much I knew, what I could prove, and what I had. And it quickly became a problem of, he is a danger.
Yeah,
right.
We need to deal with this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bob Lazar kind of.
100%. And that's the thing that, that I notice a lot is that a lot of what the types of reprisals that you have experienced in your line of work mimic the same tactics all the way back to 1989 when George was reporting on Bob Lazar. It's like just ways to discredit you and put you and look, I've seen all the evidence that you've provided. We've looked through it. I've talked to people that know you really well over these years. You're a solid individual or wouldn't be sitting here. So the fact that they're setting up the option to be able to discredit you is exactly why they probably chose Bob compared to him. I mean, he's working official capacity with clearances and all that stuff, but it's the same tactics.
Yeah, I mean, it's called standard operating procedure. I actually laugh. I mean, honestly, I was laughing about George's mug right here when confronted. One thing about the United States government is they don't really change their SOPs or TTPs. They think if it works, it's going to work forever. And this goes back to issues we were talking about, which is the internet changed the game. AI is going to change it more. And too many people have come out. So these SOPs and TTPs to keep whistleblowers silent, you really got to start adapting, unfortunately. And I don't want to give people who want to hide this secret or ammunition, but this is a different ballgame this time.
Give us a sense of how they've made your life miserable as a result of you leaving that job and really setting the table for discrediting you if they need to do it.
I mean, okay, that works. For example, I witnessed a suicide. The police showed up. There was an official police report. I was with other veterans. The Veterans Affairs Administration was contacted. And the police contacted the VA on my behalf to tell the psychologist there that this happened. I went in with another veteran, a Marine, who deployed to Afghanistan, combat engineer, great guy. We went into our psychological eval from the suicide we both witnessed together. He was treated with due respect, asked how he felt, apologized, the whole nine. What they did to me is they accused me of faking a police report, faking being a police officer, wrote in my official medical records, which have hindered me to this day, it's still ongoing, that I am a liar, I am prone to delusions, I make everything up, and that is in my official medical records. You guys have the police report number, you guys have the voicemail, I played it for you both. That was the first thing the VA did to me. I was put into a hypnosis biofeedback program where once a week I had to go to the VA and I would be hooked up to a polygraph machine. And they would flash images of an Afghan child with a gun to a butterfly. And I'm hooked up to this polygraph machine and I have to count backwards from 100 by 7 while they're flashing images. And if I got the number wrong, like 193, 86, and I said 77, they'd start screaming at me, honking an air horn, and I'd have to restart. I had to pull my 401k because I didn't have a clearance. I couldn't get a job. I almost lost my house. I had to fight BAE and the agencies I work for unemployment, which was $270 a week in Northern Virginia, which, if you know anything about Northern Virginia, is the richest part of America. It is not feasible to even get groceries off of that. Basically, I lost everything but my house. And at one point in time, because I was concerned I was going to lose my house because I am a 10% disabled vet, the VA is denying I ever did the jobs I did, denying I have the issues I have, the whole nine. I was genuinely concerned I was going to lose my house. And I began to honestly consider and look at nonviolent offenses in order to have 3 hots in a cot, because I was very quickly approaching the point in time where I would probably be a homeless disabled vet.
Sounds like they wanted you to kill yourself.
That is 100% what they did. In fact, there was a doctor who filed a complaint within the IG at the VA on my behalf because they were, in his opinion, trying to get me to kill myself. At one point in time, they put me on a prescription medication for PTSD and depression, which I wasn't allowed to collect, by the way. The VA still denied I had PTSD or depression, but they put me on the medicine for it. And I woke up in the middle of the night while on this medication, and the best way I can describe it is, you need to relieve yourself to go to the bathroom or you're thirsty. It's a physical response. I woke up in the middle of the night, and the physical response in my brain was commit suicide. I freaked out, rightfully so. Something I will never do is commit suicide. I'm a Roman Catholic. It is against my religion to do so. I contacted the VA. I went to the VA on the police's, again, all documented, and the VA psychologist, who was a CIA employee of all things, or was, said, "Oh, this is common. You need to increase your dose." The psychiatrist, you have his name.
Yeah.
He was made aware. He filed a complaint on my behalf. He found out there was a team dedicated to me at the VA, and he filed a complaint against that team. He was told that nothing's going to change, that I answer to them. And he told me verbatim, he said, "Dylan, you need to do everything in your power to live through this. What they are doing to you is wrong. Do not trust any of these doctors. There is something very wrong with what is being done to you." And keep in mind, this whole time this is happening, I'm over at BAE. And he resigned.
In protest, he resigned because of what they were doing to Dylan. And let's just back up. This is some Stranger Things bullshit. To take somebody like Dylan through, I think it was Stanford research, right? To take somebody through like Dylan.
Penn State and Stanford.
It was what?
Penn State and Stanford.
And, used aeroforms and these violent images. And I mean,
Malcolm McDowell.
It's my favorite movie. Yeah, it's like Clockwork Orange. Not to make light of it, but it's like, I've talked to a bunch of people about this, and it's some sort of psychological program that has really deep ties within the CIA.
MK Ultra.
It's like a continuation of that, is what I understand. So there's something else going on that Dylan is searching for answers, and I get that with what he's experienced. It appears to be connected to the UAP thing.
I mean, I'm almost certain it is, because this goes back to when I was discharged from the Air Force. After I processed with the VA and the Air Force, the DOD mandated I go to the Navy. I'm not a Navy. I never work with I train Navy guys, but I'm not Navy. I never work for the Navy other than Special Ops, which is under
redacted.
I had out process with the Navy, and when I went down to out process with the Navy in 2013, I go down there and the Navy doctor's asking me about ESP, God, remote viewing, aliens, the whole nine.
you walk in that day.
I walk in, and during my out process for my medical discharge, they're like, how's your back? Oh, we're sorry about your dental thing. We'll get that taken care of. Oh, by the way, we have some psychological questions to ask you. Do you believe in God? Do you believe in ESP? And that's the first time, George. The second time I had the same thing happen to me when I was filing for PTSD with the VA. The VA doctors and the clinician that did it, the psychiatrist who did my VA eval, started asking me, oh, do you believe in God? Do you believe in ESP? Remote viewing. Has this ever happened to you? Do you have prophetic dreams?
Did you ask them, why are you asking me this?
I did, and they're like, oh, well, this is just standard eval. And all of this stuff, and this is what's so troubling, is because I'm doing this, and it leads us all the way to now, and why I'm here on camera with you is I did everything by the book for our country. I put my faith in bureaucrats and companies in our nation. And what I got for it was losing everything, no job, no clearance, my master's degree gone, my reputation in the toilet. I go and put a bullseye on my back with Arrow the IG. I tell Congress, let's get it straight. Congress knows. Like, everybody can play the games, and I'm sorry to the congressional staff and members that are here listening to this. Y'all know.
Well, in fact, it's people within government that vouched for the authenticity of your character and experiences that have reached out to me and George. And, they're a little nervous of us like covering, what it is that you have to talk about, although there's a big thing you can't talk about. And I respect that. I understand as a patriot, and the fact that you've testified to that stuff, that you can't talk about it. But I guess my question is, I mean, do you think, just right on the nose, man, do you think that you've been part of some like current day MK Ultra type experimentation on you based on or related to UAP or not?
And is it punishment for what you've seen, or is it part of the whole process you were meant to?
What I will say is this, and this can be, I hope not, but I suspect so.
Could you walk us through at what point you start seeking out other people who've been through the same thing, and your attempts to share information with agencies that are supposedly honestly investigating this?
That's a great question, sir, and I love it. So I get out, all this weird stuff is happening to me, clearance gone, pull my 401k, fight for unemployment, the whole nine. In October or November of 2018, I get a phone call from somebody out of CENTCOM working for Khaki, and he says, hey, my name is insert name. I heard what happened to you. What they did to you was wrong. I'm going to send you paperwork and get your clearance fixed immediately. You have to promise me, though, that when you get your clearance fixed, you're going to go work back for the government, and a point in time will come where you're going to have to go and make some decisions. That was a conversation I had. I was like, yeah, sure, sounds great, man. Whatever you say.
Make some decisions. What is it?
He just said, go back to the government, do what you've been doing, be a stand-up guy, and, life is going to take you interesting places.
Does that sound like come back in, shut the hell up, or what?
Sounds like it, but I don't know. At this point, I'm just trying to keep a roof over my head.
So you're thinking, yeah.
I said, yeah. He sends me a contract to deploy to Afghanistan to do security for $40,000 a year. He says, don't worry about the pay, don't worry about the job, just sign the contract. Sounds great, my man. Sign the contract, send it back. 3 months later in January, he calls me up. He's like, hey, your clearance is good to go. Everything's fine. Sorry you can't deploy to Afghanistan. Good luck, buddy.
So he was doing that just to get your clearance reinstated.
100%.
That was a 100% somebody just trying to take care of you on the inside.
100%.
It was a favor. It was a
It
favor.
was. So from there, I got hired back to JIDO. The job I had taken, teaching and training counter UAS ops, was gone. They hire me to go do all source and target dev. So basically, you take pictures and you have strings going everywhere, companies and names and location. That was me. I was doing all that for ops. Get in there, and this is 2019, and I am keeping my head down, trying to get my finances in order, keep my head down, but I'm still paying attention. I'm paying attention to the chat coming through work. I'm paying attention to reporting I can read. I'm paying attention to you guys. I'm paying attention to what's on public media, lose names out there, ATIP, OSAP. I'm looking at everybody sideways, like I don't trust anyone. And then all of a sudden, 2022 rolls around, and this is where everything kicks off again for me. 2022 rolls around, and the task force becomes known, to me at least. And I'm paying attention to our space in that forum, and I'm kind of participating in the forum, and I'm pulling data from the forum that I know is 100% true and people from the legacy program, and I'm putting in little pieces myself in there to put people on the right track.
Under your name?
Under my name, yep. And I'm paying attention to the chat rooms, and
that'll target you immediately. We know that our space was infiltrated.
100%.
Yeah. So,
and it's the same with Chat Surfer. I'm in Chat Surfer, and here's the story. It's a hell of a story too. 2022 rolls around. In the fall of 2022, somebody who was interviewed by the task force and claimed to be a whistleblower has this big shindig, and people are talking about going, and people are reaching out to me. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere near that. That is CIA and CIA Central. You guys are crazy doing it. And, you know, people had known my background, knew I had my master's. I was trying to shop my resume, get a better job, but I don't go to it. And a couple of people start bashing the UFO community. And I post a response in there and I say, look, my man, you really think Marco Rubio, who wants to be president, is going to put his name to something unless he knows there's truth there? And immediately I start getting private messages from people, high-ranking people overseas, like special ops officers, like, point on, my man, like, you know exactly what's up. And we form this small little group, and we're sending information to each other that's allowed legally to be shared. And a group pops up, and the same individual that had this get together makes a declaration that the people who worked in the legacy program, their lives were in danger. And you know my background, you know what I did for a living, you know what was done to me, you know my feelings about all of this. And for the next hour after he made that declaration, I checked in with people who said they were part of the task force, and they said, we do believe that is accurate. And I berated the individual who made that statement for over an hour and said, do not lie to me about this. I know you're lying about other things. I was adamant because I knew I was going to have to come forward as a whistleblower. And no offense to Arrow, I think Arrow is doing the job they are told to do. And I understand it. You put 18, 20 years in the government, you want your pension, you have a good house, you have kids, and you know how dangerous the outside is, but they're not doing the job the American Constitution demands of them.
Would you say there's a difference between the UAP task force and Arrow? I mean, that the UAP task force had different motivations and...
In my limited interaction with the task force since it's been disbanded, yes. In my limited, and again, I don't want to bash Arrow. I think there's a lot of great people at Arrow. I think they are doing what is best for them in their careers, not what's best for this subject and humanity and the Constitution.
Is it a mistake for you to have gone on to that space and engage with people you don't exactly know who they are? You know that some of them are full of shit?
I won't know until this is all over. Because of the decisions I made after everything I had been through and looking out for people who were interested in this while also keeping my eye on it to see where this was going. If I help keep people safe, or if 3 years from now they actually do a real disclosure, then yeah, it was a good decision.
This space thing that we're talking about, is there any security protection for it? Is it in any way on a platform that's not available to general public?
Yeah, you have to have the proper clearances.
And you're engaging with other whistleblowers, insiders, that you think are.
I'm sure there were other insiders and whistleblowers, because there are things that I came across that I had made comments about, and the moment that I had pointed it out, those people disappeared and that information was pulled.
You know that some of the information is right, some of it not so dependable or reliable. You're not spilling any beans there. You kind of give people a nudge in the right direction or something.
Yeah, I mean, mainly what I stuck to was, I stuck to what I experienced at Langley.
Oh, you did tell all this.
I talked about Langley, and then I talked about a little bit about odd things that had happened in my life. And it was in part because I was very concerned that people were being given false information purposefully. And I was also very concerned that people who were interested in this subject and had experiences of their own were about to put themselves in grave danger, like grave danger. Anyway, his name was discussed on a UFO, UAP, small time podcast, and that individual you talk about threw a shit fit, excuse my language. And they started making accusations that were not true. Friends of mine were given documents to sign to try and have that individual who was on that podcast job revoked, insider threat, the whole nonsense. You know, I got tangled up in it because there were things that I was pointing out that were intelligence products that were not real. And somehow those intelligence products were leaked onto Twitter. And I had just dropped a message like, anybody find this weird that this product that just came out today is being discussed by debunkers 2 days prior? All of a sudden, that individual's threatening me. How dare you? Don't make those accusations. And I'm like, I work for this agency. I know what the product is. There's no way you're making that claim, and there's no way what their assessment is valid. It's insane. Long story short, everything got kaput because of, I don't know the true reason why. I know that they had a hand in it.
Somebody took control of that discussion group.
Oh, yeah.
Who seemed to be motives that might be counterintelligence kind of a thing, or
oh, I'm sure, and I'm positive of this as well. There are people in there that are so anti-UFO UAP that come from very interesting agencies and very interesting locations, and the comments that they put in that chat room somehow are reflected by people on Twitter right now, like verbatim. Like, I go into work and I see statement, and I come out of work and on Twitter is same statement. Just saying, a little odd.
Okay, so there's a direct mirror of on inside the intelligence community in a classified realm, and those statements are then echoed onto X.
Oh, yeah.
Within the same day.
24, 48 hours,
right.
But whatever they're claiming up in their little argument.
To influence the public debate on UAP.
Oh, yeah.
So there is a direct line of intelligence community interaction on X.
In public perception, yeah.
And public perception.
Now, whether or not those people are paid, I can...
Doesn't matter if people get paid. There's a lot of motivation.
100%.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But I know that is being done.
Seen it a bunch more lately.
So you engage with this group. You see some problems that have developed. What's the next step for you? The decision to share it with official agencies?
Yeah, here we go. So that same individual, the gentleman, he makes the claim that people's lives are in danger. I have been through hell and back. I am trying to keep my head above water. There are friends of mine that are engaging with this individual, and I'm trying to warn them politely, hey, just be aware this isn't exactly true. And people are now slowly, people who are very intelligent, smart people are very quickly realizing that I know what I'm talking about. And that individual makes a statement that people's lives are in danger. At the same time that statement is made, an individual that I knew that was in the legacy program lost their job for proprietary information sharing. I did not want to go to Arrow first because I know that this is all true. I know there's a program. I know there are entities. I know it. I have experienced it. It is what it is. And I contact that individual, berate them for an hour, and then finally I say, all right, I have to take your word for it. I can't let anybody die. That was my promise to the people I knew in the legacy program. If they died, that I would come forward. I don't want them to die, so I come forward and I go to Congress. First thing I do is I get connected to Senate staffers, and they are asking me questions, and I tell them I have witnessed a triangle at Langley Air Force Base, but I have direct, in-depth knowledge of a hell of a lot more, and I am not comfortable sharing that over the phone. And as long as I am legally allowed to come to you, I will be there as soon as you will let me. And I go into meet with staffers.
We know who you testified to, and it's not, it's somebody who's has a high responsibility when it comes to this subject as far as intake and protecting whistleblowers. And when that person was in position, which they're not anymore, they did a great job.
They did. I wish nothing but the best for them. I loved those people, all of them. It upsets me, and I had suspicions because I, again, have been through what I've been through, and I can kind of recognize when people are being toyed with, that towards the tail end, they were definitely being played with, and that was my concern, and I think they recognized I knew it, and they tried to alleviate it on me. But I wish nothing but the best for them.
You told them pretty much everything, or did you hold some of it back?
I held a lot back. I had gone in, they had scheduled my meeting. There were 4 of them in the room.
You gave them program names, locations, the nature of the propulsion systems, everything.
I gave them my direct knowledge of the triangle, my direct knowledge of that entire event, and then guaranteed factual, no argument about it, a legacy program in detail with technology integration, how it works, where it's at, the whole kit and caboodle.
So they know.
What's the reaction? How do they react? Seriously, or are they?
Well, my 2 favorite moments is the one gentleman that we know was absolutely excited, and he was very much like, it's like, okay, let me hear more. There's another one that is public now, who I don't think he really wanted to believe it, and had made some comments here and there. And then towards the tail end, I had dropped 2 magic words. And when those 2 magic words dropped, I will never forget it. As soon as those 2 words dropped, that individual's mouth hit the floor. He threw his hands in his hair, looked at me, literally looked down at the paper he was writing notes on, and exasperated an agency name, and was just like staring off into space like, what the hell am I supposed to do now?
Was it a program name?
Yes.
2-word program name?
Yep.
Something you should not know. Something you should not know.
Probably. I mean, at this point, it is what it is.
But that they, based on the reaction, they do.
100%. And this goes back to Arrow, because after that I go to Arrow. But the questions they were asking me, they knew enough. So like when you ask questions, if you ask certain questions in a certain order, you, as the person being asked, can figure out, information already. So during that questioning, the questions they were asking and the things they were saying, I actually, because I didn't want them to think they were leading me on, I would actually tell them, I will answer that in a moment. Please do not ask that yet, because you could technically be leading me. Like, I'm doing that while I'm briefing Senate staff, and then I go over to House and I expose a hell of a lot more in House staff, which was not UFO related, but serious crimes. I go to Senate, I drop the information on them. They, in my impression, quickly realize I know a heck of a lot of very, very, very important information. And at that point, there was a conversation that I overheard where they were talking about whether or not to bring me to House side due to safety concerns. That was literally it. And
they were worried for you.
They were, yes. Yeah. They had asked me, did I feel in danger? And I did not want to tell them about everything else I'm telling you now, because it sounds so insane. I don't want to come across as insane, but it's all true.
Was this in a skiff?
It was. It was in a skiff. No, to my understanding, no recordings.
Did they say, hey, we're going to have you come back? They're talking about to go see the house.
No, that they brought me in. They said, did you go to Arrow? I said, I have no way to contact Arrow, and I want to talk with you guys first before I go to Arrow, because I have concerns with Arrow, knowing that they are not representing this issue fully. So I go through the Senate staff. They have the conversation about bringing me to House. There is a gentleman in the House that they decided to bring me to, who, what I was informed of was, he didn't really necessarily believe in all this, but he took safety seriously. I was brought to the House side, where I briefed a House staffer. And then we got into a heck of a lot of other non-UFO things that are serious crimes that I was witness to. People that American citizens would be furious if they found out were in positions they were in.
Corruption,
sexual harassment, people getting taxpayer funds that should have been dishonorably thrown out of the military, the whole nine. And I told that individual and another who was present in the room that day about other things that are semi-related to this. And I told the individuals, I said, check all of it. I guarantee it's all true. And 3 weeks later, I get a phone call and they said, we want you to go to Arrow as soon as possible. Here's their email address. And I said, verbatim, is it what the country needs? Yes. Do I go into everything and am I protected? Yes. And I said, all right, let's do it. So I testified to Senate and House staff members. I was told I shouldn't use testify. I informed Senate and House staffers on March 3rd. I went to Arrow either March 27th or March 28th of 2023. And I went to Arrow and went through that whole process with them. The gentleman I met with, one was a DOD officer, the other was an FBI agent. They were pleasant. I think they were quite shocked of the information I gave them and things that were currently happening and how I could tie it to legacy programs and certain technologies and capabilities. But due to my severe concern for the protection of people, I did not want to disclose certain information, and they wanted that information. I told them I wouldn't do it because I believed then that if that information was shared with Arrow, those individuals would be targeted. And then that became its whole issue later on when I got my classified Arrow MFR. Memorandum for record. So it is what Arrow is supposed to give to Arrow witnesses, usually unclassified. They classify mine and send it to my government email address, where I had to print it off in front of the entire office. I had to edit it first because there were mistakes in it, which I was told I needed to correct those mistakes. And those mistakes I was concerned would reveal information I did not want to share. So I had to make the corrections. My Arrow MFR clearly was targeting a specific staffer. I made a note to make sure that they were misrepresenting the staffer's intention and information that was discussed.
Basically, this MFR was a fishing expedition by Arrow to try to pin something on somebody that he testified to that we know, to try to make it look like they were doing something untoward, right?
So, yeah, they had an agenda for listening to your testimony. It wasn't really about UFOs, UAP. It was to, what can we use this for?
Probably both.
You know, this is my opinion. I think that the two gentlemen I testified to are great Americans. I think they actually care. I think that this came from higher up. I think I had conversations with the people, at least one of them that I testified to, I think is a good person who understands a hell of a lot more. And I think that what they did to me came from on high.
So they were listening to your story. They were, God damn.
Oh,
they were affected by what you're telling them.
Oh, yeah, they were. And I was able to draw connections for them that clearly they had no idea that that was happening.
Is this under oath? Or signed it, you had to sign something? Or
I told them I did have to sign my MFR, yes. So I did sign that, and that information was loosely in there. But technically I was not under oath. Again, something that these attorneys that are in this program made sure to tell me that that was not under oath, but I did sign an MFR, legally binding.
And subsequently, have you learned there are limitations on what you told them? Is there limits on who else you can tell the same stuff to or anything like that?
I have no idea. Okay. So I have no idea, and we're getting right into the IG.
Okay.
So go to Arrow, end of March, give them most of the information, what they need to know that this is very real, this is happening, that people are being affected, that there are issues. And about that summer, and I remember the day, it was the day that Donald Trump got indicted in Georgia, the Gang of Eight was called into an emergency meeting. And the only reason why I remember it, and I wish I knew the date, but that day is the day that I made all the edits, printed off my MFR, signed it, and went in front of my entire office, re-scanned it back into my machine, and emailed it back to Arrow. And that morning, the Gang of Eight was called into an emergency meeting about 3 hours after I sent it back to Arrow, and that was the day Donald Trump was indicted. I'm not saying they're correlated, I just know it was that day.
Right.
So from there, I'm like, all right, well, they have my info, let's see what happens. And, you know, during this time, I've been asked once or twice by people of importance whether or not I would testify to Congress under oath on this, and I said without hesitation, yes. Like 100% yes.
You testified to the operational UAP that you had direct, close proximity to, as well as the other aspect of what you came to understand about the legacy program, the reverse engineering, where it's housed, the power source, what it looks like, including
redacted.
I would testify to anything and everything of importance to our to Congress, to the legislative branch. I said it.
Because they should have oversight.
100%, and having been the victim of crimes and having been through this whole thing and being a believer in the Constitution, that this is all criminal in my opinion.
They say they want whistleblowers. They say they want people who haven't come public yet for this next hearing. That's what they've said.
I know.
This is probably when or this comes out will be after that, but that's what they said they want. You have been nominated to Congress.
I have.
And you had additional conversations with them, with staff, regarding the hearing that's coming.
He did all pre-vetting. He went through the whole process. I'm just curious why immediately, if you want whistleblowers to talk, this is their chance. Dylan would be a great chance, just like Matthew Brown, who you know and are friends with. You know, it's nice to hear about Immaculate Constellation and have that document put on congressional record, but it's different than if they get to hear from him. He'd be my first pick with you for a hearing if I wanted real whistleblowers.
I appreciate it. I tend to agree if you're not going to bring home or bring out legacy guys, but knowing what they did to me for being an experiencer and having indirect exposure, I can only imagine what they're going through.
Maybe there's a roadblock. Maybe
well,
what you have to say is something that they don't want out, even with the task force.
Well, I tend to agree, and we haven't even got to the ICIG issue
So tell us about ICIG. Tell me about that.
All right, so that summer I send off my Aero MFR. I've been asked if I would testify under oath. I say yes, and all of a sudden I hear there's going to be a UFO hearing. I have no idea who's going to be there. And all of a sudden, Dave Grush is on my computer screen at work, and I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And Dave is saying things like administrative terrorism and a certain agency and certain things, and I am laughing to myself in the office. I'm like, that's me. Like, been there, done that, know that story, know this. And Dave says he has 40 witnesses, and Dave says he filed the IG complaint, and I'm like, all right, let's go. Dave did it. Maybe they're gonna actually do it. Maybe you're gonna call all of us in here and do a full legislative hearing, House and Senate, both chambers. Let's hammer this out like 1970s CIA style. We're reeling you guys back in.
Do you assume you're one of the 40 witnesses he's talking about?
At that time I did, but I came to find out I wasn't.
Yeah, but you never testified to David Grush prior to
100%.
You did not,
I
correct?
did not, no.
Right, so you would not be one of those 40.
And that goes as to why I went to the IG.
Okay.
So I thought so because I'd been through, at that point, the only process I knew, which was talk to Congress, talk to Aero. I didn't know there was this whole side. Again, I'm like hiding out in my little bunker at work, like I am staying away from all this, and I only peek my head out to like let people know, you should probably pay attention to this, but also you are getting into some really dangerous territory. So I get a phone call after Dave testifies, and they notify me, hey, Dylan, we want you to go to the IG. And I said, all right, what about? They're like, you know, this stuff.
They, me, who? Congress?
A staffer and Dave and an attorney that you guys are aware of. I don't know if I can say their name, but an attorney you guys are aware of.
I think just, yeah, that's good.
All right. And they're like, go to the IG. And I said, am I safe? Is it what the country needs? Yes, yes. I said, all right, let's make it happen. And I go to the IG. That was in, I want to say September, October. I actually have the date for you guys if you need it. But I went there in 2023, late summer, early fall of 2023. And I go through the IG process. And to be honest with you, out of everything, I really feel like the IG process was the worst. I think the people at Aero genuinely cared, but my opinion going through the IG and the questions they asked me, the things that were said to me made me feel like that was a fishing expedition, and the only thing they cared about was finding out how much I actually knew.
Wow. That is highly disappointing.
It was very disappointing being in that room with the conversation and statements that were being made to me. Like when somebody's
redacted
asking you a question in the IG, government employee cuts them off and says, you don't ask him that question, and then looks at me and tells me you don't answer that question. Yeah. When they ask you, what do you want out of this? And verbatim, direct quote on film, by all means, go get the recording, because they said they recorded it.
Mm-hmm.
But they said, what do you want out of this? And I said, I want to look Congress in the eyes, tell them the truth under oath, so when I die, I can answer for this and know I did my job. And the response was, as far as we're concerned, you already did that, and you're not doing it again. So,
is this the actual Inspector General or
the ICIG? Yes, I have his card at my house.
You went through the whole thing.
I went through the whole thing.
Who else is there?
redacted
So ICIG, assistant director,
redacted
attorney on my right.
So you try to do this right. You go to ICIG and you literally feel like that they are just trying to pump you to figure out how much you know how dangerous you are to the legacy program.
In my opinion, looking back on this, yes, because the way they ask questions, the statements they made to each other, the statements they made to me, 100% seemed like they wanted to find out how much I knew. And at the end of this, which you're aware of the conversation I had with the attorney, it was, you are credible, not urgent, go disappear in the winds, leave this all behind, shut up, do not do anything. Your entire, everything you said, which goes back to what we talked, I mean, I talked about my childhood in there. I was told everything I talked about in that room now is up for executive review. And I brought up to the attorney, I talked about my childhood. Is that now up for it? I talked about unclassified information readily available on the internet. And they said, Dylan, every single thing you talked about is now subject to executive review. Do not go outside of those bounds.
Your whole life.
Pretty damn much.
It's like a great way to lock somebody down if you want to kind of intake their whole whistleblower story, what they know, and then say, now that you've testified to ICIG, you have to walk away.
Well, you realize they say that, and that this has been, in essence, a waste of time, that you walked into sort of a trap. I mean, I can imagine how depressing it would be.
It's depressing. It pissed me off because I was already blacklisted from the IC. And I had told the attorney that. I told the IG that. Like, I already know that there are things that are in place for me getting jobs, working in this field that years back are in play. And it's happened to me since I've gone to the IG, which goes back to retaliation. Like, technically, I'm still being retaliated against.
Inspector General's office is there to hear about wrongdoing and things that shouldn't be happening in the agencies that it oversees.
You would think, but this is now me being black-pilled, and there's a joke amongst all the military guys, which is the JAG isn't for you, the JAG is for the DOD. The IG isn't for us, the IG is for the government. And that's the way I feel now.
Did you share this with the attorney who had been advising you about seeing these guys who, we're not saying who it is, but who?
I think with the client,
Right.
I just think you're not supposed to do that. It's not like a big secret. I'm just trying to be respectful.
I made it aware to them that the statement that he had made to me was of grave concern. It made no sense. And I had asked, how do I do DOPSR? Because I do not trust this process at all anymore. And basically from that point, I was completely shut out for over a year and a half.
I think lawyers try to protect their clients. You know, I don't think it's nefarious. I think that they're just trying to do or guide their client in what's best for their well-being.
Yeah, well, especially somebody who's been around and knows what could happen.
The stuff, yeah. That's unfortunate.
Don't disagree. So, you know, I go back to work. I knew I was going to lose my job in the summer of 2024. And I started to ask questions. How do I do DOPSR? Because I'm losing my job. I know I'm losing my job. I know I'm going to have a pain trying to get a new job in the government. Nobody would really help me. And I'm trying to figure it out. I'm asking questions. I'm asking attorneys in this field. How do I file for DOPSR? I want somebody's name next to it. What do I need to do? No help.
You see what's on social media, the UFO world and their experts who are very, very brave on X and giving advice to people like you. Just come forward, tell what you know. They wouldn't dare prosecute you or mess with you. I mean, they don't have to prosecute you to mess with you. There's all kinds of things that have happened to you, to Grush, to others.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the federal government has 300,000 attorneys on payroll, and that's just bureaucrats. That's not private contractors. Everything that's said and done is reviewed by attorneys. Everything that's brought forward publicly is reviewed by attorneys. But also, you know, the average American, I believe one of the stats I heard was commits 2 or 3 felonies a day. I mean, they can nab you. I mean, honestly, they can nab you for whatever. And this goes back to even me and my job, which I am so overly paranoid of giving them even an inch. Like, oh, you made a security violation. Bye-bye, Dylan. Oh, you accidentally sold a stuffed animal for $5 at a garage sale. Tax fraud. Like, to be honest with you, I don't even own stock. I will not buy stock in any company that I know has this technology because I don't want them to come after me for insider trading. Like, that's how paranoid I am with them. So,
well, because you felt the boot on your neck through all the experiences you've had after having these exposures.
100%. And then it gets into too is like all these people saying, oh, come forward, you'll be a hero, there's money, there's book deals. And it's like, you guys have no idea. Most of us are struggling to get by right now. One guy's lost a house, another one's not going to make rent next month. I pulled my 401k to keep a roof over my head. I had to save up money for 2 years whenever I began this process because I had a feeling, which turned out to be right, I'm going to be out. And here we are where, oh, Congress, bring whistleblowers forward. Oh, we're going to drain the swamp deep state. Oh, we're going to do X, Y, Z. You have literal laws in place with the SEC over what every single whistleblower has done. We qualify for it. It's not our problem the DOJ doesn't want to prosecute. That's on them. We met our obligation. And if they're not going to do it, what else are we supposed to do?
Right. There's no safety net. You guys throw away your professional careers, but you're also being pressured in a lot of ways to get out. But you basically throw that away to be able to do what you feel is the right thing. Same with Matthew Brown, same with you, same with a bunch of unnamed people publicly who have been through some of this process. And I guess it's important for our audience to know there really is no safety net. It's like you have to, you're out on your own. Everybody's offering you these whistleblower protections. What good are they? David Grush had whistleblower protections through the ICIG, and still yet they were unable. And I saw the pressures on him. I saw when he was testifying that there was an intelligence agency. If he said the one wrong word,
Yep.
and just slipped up just a little bit in his language. That's why Chuck McCullough was behind him during that they were ready to prosecute internally. No one will ever hear about this publicly, but I know it as a fact. I saw it happen that they were trying to do that. So you think about all these things and the pressure's really on, like, what is the benefit for people to come forward? There really isn't a benefit. But the question is, why do you do it still?
Well, a couple of things. You are absolutely correct, and this goes back to they will nitpick every single thing. And that is why I've been so overly cautious. And at this point, which we'll get into, I'm sure, this is coming. But for example, I go in, I lose my job in the summer of 2024, September 30th, new fiscal year, October 1st, and I go in for a polygraph for a certain agency, and it's a normal CI polygraph, and it happens to be
redacted.
And it's a CI poly. It's not a full scope. This is, do you talk to Russia? Are you selling secrets? I don't even have a passport. I've been too poor to even take a vacation. I mean, I'm here, and this has been the first vacation I've had in 12 years.
Coming to see us? Oh, we're sorry.
I mean,
could have been something better.
But the irony is that, oh, well, we're going to protect whistleblowers. We're here for retaliation. We're here for X, Y, Z. Well, I go into a CI polygraph, and the point of a polygraph is to tell the truth. In my polygraph, I'm asked, what don't you want to talk about? And I make it clear, I don't want to talk about my IG complaint. And obviously you're being filmed on a polygraph and this person on the computer and they're typing back and forth and I drop that I have an IG complaint in. You're like, what? It's like, yeah. You're like, what's the status? I was like, I have no idea. I don't know anything. I'm basically out here in the dark for almost a year now. He gets on his computer and he's like, I'll be back. He comes back in and he laughs and he says the name of the IG. And then he goes, what was the nature of your complaint? What are the details? And I was like, you can't ask me that. It's like, you don't have need to know. What are you doing?
Right.
And my point is that retaliation? Because I didn't pass the polygraph. I didn't fail, but I'm not a counterintelligence risk. So what?
Right. The retaliation comes in all these myriad of forms. If you want to see it like that, they should not be asking you that question.
100%.
ICIG complaint is supposed to be confidential. And yeah, that's,
And this goes right back to criminality and playing a game and knowing what you can get away with and how to say things to get away with it. That's all it is.
You're pretty sure that there's surveillance, phones tapped, things of that sort. They're watching your computer. We saw it. We saw it, the three of us.
Personally,
we personally witnessed
that on you.
Somebody following you.
To be honest with you, George, in my opinion, I have just assumed, and I'm pretty damn sure I'm right on this, that was mainly for you guys because I've been operating at a point to where it's like, pretty much try me. Yeah, I don't really have much to lose.
They definitely wanted it to be known that it was not a private meeting between all of us. I had never experienced it to that extent before, but the two times, first time I ever met with Dylan, a similar experience, something happened, followed kind of Dylan after that. hard to prove that shit, but I'm glad the three of us got to see it that one time. Yeah, that's annoying.
Were there points in the last few years that you were really encouraged? Man, at last something's happening. New York Times story, December 2017. There's this program called ATIP, which I'm sure you hadn't heard about, and whether it's a program or not. And then OSAP pops up in 2018, and we know about these documents and investigations, and UAP Task Force gets created even before Congress officially did it. You could be encouraged. That sounds like it's heading in the right direction. And then it seems like all those get swatted down.
I had reservations through all of it. For me personally, Dave testifying under oath and then me going to the IG were the only two moments that I had faith that this was on the right track. Since then, it has been a complete joke.
Are you concerned about your life now, or it's out? I mean, things that you have shared, even though it's in confidence, it's probably known.
I think the powers that be have known that I made certain assurances 7 years ago in 2018 when I had all those events take place, losing my job, car accident, unemployment, the VA issues. They've been paying attention for a while, and I made sure even back then that certain assurances were in place. I think at this point,
waters you down, doesn't it?
It's depressing. I mean, you're aware. I married my wife 1 month before I became a whistleblower. My entire marriage has been nothing but this nonsense.
Is she okay? Is she okay with this?
I doubt, no. I mean, she knows it's true. She knows that this has been my entire government career. She knows what agencies have done to me. She knows what I've been through. I mean, it's a joke with her and I where I have a master's degree, 15 years of experience. She's a very intelligent woman, but she does not meet those qualifications. And she was making something like $40,000 more a year than I was. And it's like, you get to a point to where it's like, going full circle, you have nothing left to lose.
This may be too personal, but did she ever say, just walk away from this shit? Just walk away.
Well, I think that's why I'm here now, is I have done everything I possibly can, and people that we know had told me, Dylan, walk away from it, and I have done everything in my power to try, except for this. So now this is it.
So this is the kind of, so I was going to ask you, like, this is the coup de grace. It's like, if you don't testify, it's a very bizarre choice that they would have made. But if you don't, then why are we doing this? Like, what do you hope, to get out of this? I don't mean to sound like the ICIG here, but what do you hope to get out of this? But I mean, my point is just that it doesn't do anybody any favors. We know that from Matthew Brown. Like, he threw down, he did his best. It didn't change his life. So why testify like this to the American public, to George and to me? We've been talking privately for so long. Why now? Why go public?
Because I think unless you have a dramatic change in the approach of disclosure, if our government is not going to help do it for our own nation, then you need to bring in different tools and assets. And I'm coming this as a victim of crimes. I'm coming this as somebody who went through the entire process. I'm coming to this with proof that has been given in closed doors, that has been proven and classified is 100% true. I'm coming at this now, and I'm hoping that veterans, the special forces community, I'm hoping that other whistleblower attorneys, I'm hoping that average Joe down the street right now is going to come across this who fought in Iraq, and I may have even helped to bring him home, is going to hear this and say, you don't do this shit.
Not to Dylan, not to anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll never work have a classification again. You'll never work in that whole national security apparatus. Your whole career has been part of that.
100%.
What are you going to do?
We talked about it last night. I have no idea. It is what it is. Thank God I saved up enough for me to pay my mortgage for a while, and then I'll probably pull my 401k, and then round two, no retirement again, no nothing. And
so this is important to you enough that, or you've gotten to that breaking point where you're like, I know you can't say everything in this interview, and I respect that. That's from a position of patriotism. You understand there's certain things that you've been exposed to that you can't say on camera, but we can talk around it a little bit. So I guess what I'm asking is, even though you know that you can only go this far, but you're putting your face out there, it's worth it to you to not be able to go back into, I mean, I'm making an assumption you're not ever going to get another government job again.
Yeah, unless Dave or somebody convinces our executive branch in Congress to actually let us back in and do this the right way.
But it's worth it to you as a whistleblower. Why?
Because what I have provided is true. People have been victimized. People have committed suicide over this.
Because of the legacy UFO thing.
100%. And more importantly, because I know what I testify to dramatically changes not just America, but humanity instantly. And yes, it would take time, but you were talking about economics, migration. You were talking about travel. You were talking about mining comets and going to other planets. You are talking about all of this. And wars for resources after my generation just fought those for damn near 20 years are irrelevant. Now, yeah, you're going to have to deal with human population expansion. You're going to have to deal with other things. And America and our interests aren't aligned with China's interests and Russia's interests. But I would rather get ahead of this and have our government be a part of it before it comes out, because then this is going to be chaos.
Okay, but like what comes out? Like what are you talking about? You're talking about disclosure, you're talking about UAP, the reality of extraterrestrials or whatever.
I'm talking about what Carl Nell would describe as catastrophic disclosure, where information that I and others have brought forward would be released and believed and known to be true by the general public in such a capacity that our government, as we understand it, would never recover.
You think people have committed suicide over this?
Oh, 100%.
Not a fake suicide that somebody else did to look like a suicide, or an actual suicide?
100%.
Because it make them so depressed and feel so alone.
Been there, done that, yep.
Not done that.
Not done that, but been there,
Been there,
through it,
yeah.
and wanted to, yeah.
Like you had something put in your head or medicine that made you feel that way.
Yeah, and then you go through and you're, next thing you know, you're 30 some odd years old by yourself, completely alone. Everything you worked for gone. You have no retirement. You're driving a broken down car that's zip tied, picking up you in a park, and you're like, what is my life?
Let's talk about big picture. What does it mean? What's this whole story mean? Because, we've been pretty far up the food chain with people who've been at it for a long time at high levels, high security clearances, worked in programs. They all have guesses, but I don't know a single one of them that knows for sure what it is.
I will give my opinion. This is my opinion, knowing what I know for a fact, reading and coming into contact of information that I believe to be true, looking at history and looking at through my perspective. I think what we are dealing with is very, very, very old. I think old humans have written those down in religious stories. I think that it's quite clear that we have been influenced by something else. I think Arrow has been telling the American public the truth, and you have said this on Weaponized on my behalf, which is Arrow's statement, there is no scientific evidence of extraterrestrials, is 100% technically true. You have to have a control to have scientific proof, and extraterrestrial is a very exact statement and word with an exact definition, an entity of another planet. These things, whatever they are probably what are referred to as gods or demons or angels or jinn, or insert whatever cultural or religious perspective you have. There are probably also extraterrestrials. It's not a one-size-fits-all. And considering, humanity has the same stories across many cultures. A flood, crafts that are in the sky, things that are coming and helping humans. And I'm at an advantage and a disadvantage knowing certain information that relates very clearly to things that are around the world that are related to what I know. I don't think that's by pure coincidence or luck. I think that the people that are in these programs know the truth to this stuff, and they are looking at it through a lens of this is true, this is true, this is true. This has been here for 8,000 years. This has been here for 4,000 years. Oh, we dug up this at an archaeological dig in hypothetically Egypt. I mentioned it to you guys last night. Lakatsky in his statement. about his faith and what it means to be human and the impact and nothing to fear. You know, Lakatsky and I are both Catholics, but I want to be clear in that it's the idea of something greater than us that is here with us and can influence us. And Pasalka talks about this, and you get into consciousness, and all of these things are so correlated, and that's a problem with this subject. And that's why one of the things that I'm a huge proponent of, going back to having our government be a part of this, is you have to set a foundation. Because if you come out and you throw it all out there, people are going to laugh at you. They're going to call you crazy. They're going to do X, Y, and Z. And you have to set a foundation. And I understand the UFO fanatics are not going to like this opinion, but this isn't for you. This is for the public. If you want disclosure, the public has to be a part of it. Hence why I'm here, is to hopefully get enough people outside of this subject, agitated, upset, and come and say, no, we're done with this. My big picture idea is it's been here for a very long time. It goes by many names. It's many different things. And it has an influence on all of us.
You know, we don't really know what they look like. You know, they're so advanced to us. Gods, sure, could be at that level. They might as well be gods. They're so far advanced. I don't think they need craft to get here. That's some kind of a bauble. That's something to get us interested. Look, hey, look at this. That's why we maybe have so many of them. They don't necessarily crash. That appears to be a crash. Something that's always been here. I'm not entirely positive they have our best interests at heart. Feels like an experiment. They mess with us on a mass scale, an individual scale, and I'm not sure we're ever going to understand it.
I tend to agree with you. I have many thoughts on this, and this is one of the other things I came into knowledge of while at my work at DITRA before I lost my job. When Congress passed the archives legislation where all the agencies were supposed to round up all their documents, I had a wonderful conversation on my last day, and I'm sure it was just coincidental. The person in charge of collecting all of the information from DITRA dealing with extraterrestrials and, as he put it, quote unquote, little green men, happened to sit next to me at my computer terminal and began pulling all of the documents on my system and the systems in our skiff. Interesting fact for you was that he came into the old atomic energy documents from way back when, and there was intelligence and information in those that discuss what you said, which is this has been around with them, and that even back then they had a similar outlook that this isn't exactly for our benefit. You know, you get into, and again, I don't want to go too woo. I want to really avoid the woo, but we're going into hypotheticals, and I try to keep all options open. You're right. Theoretically, they don't have to come here. I mean, we're working with Neuralink. We're projecting thoughts. We're doing all of this, dreams. You have MK Ultra. You have all of this stuff throughout the history, and all of our intelligence agencies never get rid of that capability. They only get better at it, and they only get better at hiding it. But if somebody's able to put a thought in your head, George, and tell you build this craft, yeah, you're the one who built it, but the thought came from somebody else. And now you start to get into places that are purely hypothetical, and I'm not even saying I believe them, but it's clear there's something to this.
Like thoughts as intruders from a non-human intelligence, having humanity do the bidding that they want without direct knowledge that it's being asked by someone else. And we're talking about that, right?
Theoretically, that's a possibility, 100%. I think on Joe Rogan, he mentions like artificial intelligence influencing humans to continue to create artificial intelligence and just round and round.
Yeah, the metamorphosis philosophy that Rogan talks about, it's really beautiful.
I mean, I keep all options on the table. What I know is these things are real. They exist. We've had them. Other nations have them. I know that in some way, shape, or form, they appear in a physical sense. I know that they have an interest in people, and I have a strong belief that they have an interest in certain families, if you want to call them that. What does it all mean? I don't know, but what I do know is that as a democratic republic, and a nation that votes for our elected leaders and leaders that are supposed to provide us information, we're not fulfilling our obligation in our Constitution because we're not voting with information. We are lying to ourselves.
What information could be released without causing a freak out? It's hard to imagine anything that a government would confirm that wouldn't lead to 5,000 follow-up questions. But let's say a decision is made by this president or the next one, assuming we have another one, which we're going to release some stuff. We're going to come clean up to a point because we don't want to tell our enemies too much about where we are. But what could you say? We have some technology that we didn't build. It's non-human in origin, as far as we know. There's some other presence here. We're working on it. I don't know how much further you can go.
I think you can go all the way up to the line of what our current capabilities are in the engineering program and integration program. I think you can go all the way up to that line. I think that that line should be discussed, but I think that is up to our elected representatives to work with Russia and China and other nations that almost certainly have these same technologies, and some very well may be further along than us in some capacity. I would hope that, similar to atomic weapons, some type of an agreement can be made. I think you can basically disclose everything up to the line of where we are currently at to the public, and then that is for our representatives to deal with internationally, geopolitically, at the UN. I think that is just for hardware and what these things are. I think once that foundation has been set, you can then start to disclose the other things. But what needs to be disclosed immediately is the crimes.
I think there's a point where you couldn't say too much about them, and you don't want to scare the shit out of the public, but you could acknowledge there's something, it's a legitimate mystery. And then it opens up the possibility that legitimate mainstream scientists could get into it, theologians, different kinds of power structures in the world who now know, it's real. It's not disrespectful. I'm not going to get drummed out of academia for taking this seriously. We can get on with it. Now, maybe that's a way to get to the answers, but I suspect that whoever they are, they're always going to be at least one step ahead of us.
I tend to agree, and, I get the impression that they actually control it, which is conversations we've had as well. I would say one other thing, though, that I would really want to point out, and this goes back to history and our nation, and what is very concerning to me is in the past, America would bring the best and brightest forward to do things like this, whether that's computer hacking or work on this tech, creative. I mean, we would hire criminals and get them out of jail to come work for the FBI. I have grave concerns that in the day and age of artificial intelligence and academia, we no longer teach critical thinking. And if you really want to understand this, you need to get people that think way outside the box and are creative thinkers and will look at it for what it is and then ask every single question on what that could mean. And I have a very bad feeling we are not doing that.
No, I mean, it's like media, so that was my start, is trying to get, I never figured I could figure out the mystery, but the start was trying to get other journalists to be interested. Hey, this is real. This is a real story. You can pursue it. It's honorable. You got to separate wheat from chaff. There are crazy people who make shit up, but there's a real story here. The learning curve is so intense. You can't do this in a week. You can't read a book. Okay, now I figured it out. Or in 6 months or a year or 5 years. It takes a long time. And what reporters have time to do that? What members of Congress really have the time to get their heads around it,
Yeah, and that comes back to me coming forward. Those are crimes. You guys have seen it. They committed crimes against me. Our nation has done nothing about it. Those agencies and those companies are still having contracts. They're still making millions of dollars. The VA doctors are still treating other patients. To this day, no one's even sent me an apology. In fact, the only person who even said thank you, and it was a sideways thank you, was the attorney. It's like, thank you for your service to the nation, young man. It's depressing.
What do you think is going to happen to you after we release this, assuming that we can?
Well, Jeremy is aware, and we talked about it last night as well. My intent is to hopefully go on my honeymoon finally after all these years. It's been unfair to my wife. It's been unfair to me. I want to disappear. I don't want to even look at the internet. Everybody can go and have their arguments. The truth is the truth, and the truth speaks for itself, and the truth is the light. If people want disclosure, it's now up to you. Because this lame duck approach of we are going to make promises and we are going to go back on them and we want to do X, Y, and Z, and you're given everything on a silver platter and no one makes an action on it, to each their own. But everybody's going to have to answer for it at the end. And I'm going to go and disappear for a while and see how this goes and hope that America comes to my back and to your back and to Matt's back and everybody who is testifying and has testified, because at the end of the day, and this is why I really hope the vets come, is you serve your country has done this.
Well, one thing that, I'm not sure that Congress is ever going to be able to get to the bottom of it. I'm encouraged that they're taking it seriously. We know some of these members, you talk to them a lot, Jeremy, and their interest is sincere and they want to get to the bottom. But I mean, they're amateurs compared to the people who have been keeping these secrets. And I'm not sure if they'll ever succeed. But one thing they could do is establish some sort of a structure that protects whistleblowers, people who have a story to tell like you, that would help them survive economically, give them a soft landing spot of financial support that encourages them to tell what they know, give them legal protections. There are some things that are legal protections don't stop people from breaking into your house or cutting your brake lines or distributing health records that embarrass you. But there has to be some sort of support for people who have information who'd like to come forward but are scared.
I just want to say, to our viewers, because it's a very difficult interview, because we want to be able to tell it like it is, and just put it all on the table. But you are highly restricted on certain elements of your knowledge of the legacy UAP stuff, because when you went in to do the right thing and you went to Arrow and you went to the ICIG, they immediately classified and put into a SAP a lot of that UAP non-human intelligence information. So our audience only gets to hear you say, I saw something, these are the reprisals against me because I fell into other information, but that information I can't talk about. That's a difficult thing for the audience to have to get.
Yeah, I 100% understand and agree, and maybe I can help them make it a little bit easier. I provided 3 rudimentary drawings, one of which was unclassified and the other 2 were immediately thrown into a SAP. And the 2 that were thrown into a SAP prove we are not alone.
Can you replicate what you saw, at least, of the triangle? Can you replicate for us today and just kind of draw that up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I think that's good. So we're doing our best to report based upon, the testimony you brought to us, what you've done with Congress, what you've done with Arrow, what you've done with the ICIG. Thank you for doing that. For bringing yourself forward. I hope that your testimony, even though it is limited right now, I hope that it does encourage other people. I really hope I see you up there in Congress, with authorization to tell it like it is. And that's the thing. I don't know if we're going to get that for you. But, thank you for doing that. Thank you for coming forward. And I hope people do support you and other people. I hope that your testimony encourages other people to come forward. If this is, as you're saying, it's really fucking important.
It's the most important thing, I think, of our lifetime, and probably the most important thing going forward, because a lot of humanity's issues would be solved, but that is also the problem, is humanity is humanity.
Do you have a message for anybody out there who has experienced reprisals such as you, or threats, or feel scared to talk? What can you tell people that from your perspective, do you have a message for anybody that's stuck in this kind of situation dealing with UAP stuff?
Yeah, give me a second, because I just choked up again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to them. I'm so sorry to them. This is a joke. It really is. I'm sorry for everybody who has tried to do the right thing. I'm sorry for all the people that sit at home and they have no one to talk to. They're isolated, they're lonely, and I talk to some of them. This country has done a crime against you, and I hope we are all able to find peace, and I hope that you can make your way to people that will help you get your story out. It sucks. This really sucks.